Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you, Tim. It was great to reconnect with you and looking forward to having this discussion.
Oh, yes, great to reconnect with you, and I too am excited about it. So, Ben, let's talk about the global landscape. Your deep and broad experience on the global stage. Tell us what you're thinking, your time spent in the US, working in Europe and throughout Asia. We're excited to learn from you about your thoughts about the current global landscape.
No, thank you so much. So today I'm speaking to you from Zurich, Switzerland. So in the last, I would say 12 months, I think the world has actually seen something that it hasn't seen for over 100 years, right? And the pandemic obviously is the top of mind for everybody, but it's very interesting as I kind of look back across the various regions that I have worked in and the businesses that I've actually, led and how they respond to such a crisis, right? And in terms of countries and policies aside, I think everybody has a really focused ability to say, how do I actually navigate my own business through these particular times? It's triggered a lot of great conversations, conversations that might not have happened if it wasn't because of this kind of macro event, right? For example, how do I virtualize my staff? How do I lead an organization while they're not sitting next to me? How do I transform my business? Because maybe my business model needs to be relooked at. And more importantly, I think people are putting a new emphasis on different value creation, right? So this is actually a common theme that I see around the globe. And when I kind of look at the various major regions, obviously the Asia region has actually come out of the pandemic in this period of time a little bit more ahead. And perhaps it's because, to put into perspective, the Asia region has indeed experienced similar pandemics before that were localized, right? So SARS, in 2000, in SARS, and the like, that actually kind of preempted, their responses, and so they knew how to respond. But yet, I think this is the first time that we're seeing this in Europe and in the Americas. And so it's interesting to see how different businesses have protected their organizations and protected their business, and how they've actually navigated through this period of time.
Great, thanks, Ben. So tell us about your organization and how are you and your business continuing to innovate during this time of ongoing disruption?
Yeah, so I am actually part of Media Brands, actually an organization within the IPG group. We're actually in the media investment space, right? At the end of the day, we're actually a marketing solutions company, and we actually provide capabilities in media, in creative, in technology, and commerce. And our clients are traditionally advertisers, right? But increasingly more and more, we're starting to see a broad stroke of actually clientele that are coming to us for a number of different solutions. And what's interesting about our business and actually the line of work that I'm in is that we're advisors for our clientele, because they're not only coming to us to say, how do I traditionally amplify my message, from a marketing perspective, but now because of actually innovations in technology and digitization of access of media, right, and creativity, right? They're asking us to actually say, how do I communicate to my clients or consumers more effectively in this new world? Right? And what kind of solutions can we provide to them, that actually kind of differentiates that experience set? And so what's very interesting for me, it's always fresh in that sense, right? That our challenge is multifold, right? So we can use so many different tools, techniques, platforms, approaches, right? To devise a strategy that's not just, let's say a PowerPoint presentation, but bring these solutions out in real life. And so this is actually where, especially during this period of time with the pandemic, right, clients are asking us to actually kind of help them navigate through, think about the next generation experiences that will attract consumers to engage with their brands or their products even more.
Fascinating. And it's a great segue, I believe, to my next question about digital transformation in business appears to be moving at an unprecedented rate. What do you believe the next 5 years will look like as businesses either lead or scramble to keep pace with these advancing technologies?
Hmm. I would say that growing up in Silicon Valley, it's always been part of my childhood, right? And actually my career, knowing that technology has been really the driver of change, right?
Mm,
Most recently, obviously, the theme of digitization and digital transformation has actually taken a forefront. But in fact, this transformation has been going on for quite some time,
mm.
right? In fact, you could even say it's for decades, right? And what we're
Yes.
just experiencing is that the foundations that has been set for decades in the past has now enabled us to actually experience digitization at a consumer level, right? And in a much more pervasive way than ever before.
Mm,
Now that said, with the backdrop of the pandemic, it's just pushed probably 5, 10 years, or to 10 years of transformation, right? That usually would have taken almost a decade to do in literally 9 to 10 months,
mm,
right? So it's more palpable for everybody. I mean, evidenced by the fact that we're speaking halfway around the world via Zoom,
mm.
right? I think when we were, when I was in IU, back in the early 2000s, I think that was an unimaginable way of communicating. It would have required us to get on a plane, arranged, a meeting somewhere, and basically have that face to face. But
Right.
now I could speak to you halfway around the world, and it's very natural now,
Mhm.
right? Is evidenced by the fact that this digital transformation is now in place. As I look into the next 5 years, right, there are a couple of mega trends that I think will continue to drive us, right? Um, Automation continues to be the big theme,
Mhm.
right? I think it's been talked about in so many ways that we're in the third major industrial revolution, right?
Mhm.
And this particular automation due to machine learning or even AI, right, is upon us. And this is in one way a guiding principle for what of things to come, and more importantly of how we as humans are interacting with one another, right, in a very 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 digital experience,
Mhm.
automated way. I mean, we live in a world where cars can drive themselves,
Mm.
rockets can land themselves, I mean, it's unimaginable just even 10 years ago, but yet here we are. So I think in the next 5 years we'll see an unprecedented speed of transformation,
Mm.
from not only from driven by technology to create new and exciting experiences that could have never imagined just another 5 years before.
I'm excited for your children and mine, Ben, to witness
Indeed.
and lead some of these new value creations, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Well, business truly is global, and we at the Kelley School continue to build upon our extensive existing collaborations with international partner schools and global businesses, providing our students opportunities not just for cultural exchange, but real leadership experience dealing with critical business issues on a worldwide scale. Are
Mm.
there other global trends, Ben, that have captured your attention?
Mm. Yes. I thought a lot about kind of what is going to happen. And I think it's best to be summarized by one word. I think the future is all about less, right? When we actually hear about the age-old adage about less is more, I think that is going to be a guiding principle for what's going to happen, right? For example, I believe that we're going to live in a borderless environment,
Mhm.
right? A contact-less environment, a cash-less environment, a book-less environment.
Mm,
But that less is actually really putting into perspective what is the most, heart of the value that we actually
mm,
all create. It is an unprecedented period of time for us to reflect. I'm sure a lot of folks, despite everything that's been going on in the last year, has a lot of opportunity to reflect on what is important and what's not.
mm,
Things that they held dear, maybe no longer takes that emphasis in their life, right? And it might be noise that historically that has, bombarded us, and perhaps even carried us to think about other things and blinded us from maybe what's the truth. But this
mm,
period of time has actually allowed us to say, hey, I could do more with less, right?
mm,
I can actually, create more with what I have. And it goes back to the idea is that if you're hungry, right, for something, you will start getting yourself, ready for change.
mm.
And when you're comfortable, you may never want to change. And so I'm pretty optimistic with regards to what will happen, to humanity in the next, decade or so as a byproduct of this, because out of this period of time, drive more innovation, right?
Mm.
And more interesting ways of interacting that we've never, imagined before. And that's the beauty of humanity. And I think that that is going to be the driving force for all of us. And I'm excited to see how this all plays out.
Well, Ben, that's a great segue into this final question. Please share some advice with those seeking an international career in business. How do you feel they might best prepare to be successful in the global marketplace?
Brilliant. I think one of the things with regards to the pandemic that has brought to light, right, is that we are now living in a borderless, almost transcendent-like state, right?
Mm,
International business has historically been really being able to actually physically go to another location, have meetings, and so on and so forth. Again, evidenced by this particular conversation, this is in a way international business.
mm,
I oversee a couple of markets in Asia, and my day-to-day essentially is operating right now from Switzerland and actually really operating in hours that are actually in Asia and having meetings that are actually in this same format. So doing international business no longer classically means physically being somewhere.
mm,
It means it's really being able to have that state of mind to understand the dynamics of a new, different market dynamic and
mm.
be able to tap into this, right? And I think that that's really the first a mindset. The second thing is that if I were to start out again, right, through kind of my master's program at IU, I'd say take advantage if there's an opportunity to do a foreign exchange program
Mm,
because it actually forces you to start understanding, how people are thinking, how other cultures are operating, how other markets, really are shaping, in that period of time. I took a concerted effort during my master's to actually first learn about the Indian economy for 6 months, right? And we
mm,
had a chance to actually take a trip to India, and it was my first time learning about a developing nation like India. And in parallel, it drove me to actually wanted to actually take the opportunity to go to CIBES, the China Europe
mm,
International Business School in Shanghai, where I spent the last 6 months of my program learning about business in China. And this was actually during a period of time where China was just coming up,
mm,
right? And so it forced me out of very Bay Area, Silicon Valley thinking, right?
mhm,
And you can argue even an American, American focused thinking to a much more broader global mindset.
mm.
And that push and that drive, if you will, right, was what has led me to where I am today, right? Someone who has actually been able to be, humbly, and humbly and you really having the opportunity to actually work in three major locations, because that thirst to understand how people operate in different markets,
Mm,
right, was what I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn about the world. And the only way to do it, right, obviously is to be there. But given
mm.
the current conditions, it doesn't mean that it's not open to you, right? In fact, it just is open to everybody in a different way. And
Yeah.
so I would recommend those who are actually going through this process and if assessing all of these various different opportunities is to, if there's an opportunity that you want to go for it, do it. Do
Mm.
it soon. Don't regret, right? And you will
Great
never
advice.
know, yeah, you will never know where the road takes you, but you will always know, you will always wonder if you never took the step.
Mm. Well put, Ben. Absolutely. I think I like so much the idea of the growth mindset over the fixed mindset.
Mm,
And you spoke to that beautifully, and the value that comes from it. So I hope all of us will be reminded to go for it, right? And
yes,
take those chances because such benefit comes from doing so.
yes.
Well, Ben, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to reconnect and to hear from you and learn from you. Thank you for your excellent thinking, and we need to have another conversation again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tim, for your time and the opportunity to share the story. And please be safe, and I wish you and your family, a great start to 2021.
Thank you, and the same to you and your family, Ben.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.